Hello and welcome to the Hindu News Analysis by Shankar IAS Academy. The displayed news articles along with the page numbers from different editions of the Hindu are displayed here for your convenience. The PDF link of the handwritten notes and the time stamping of the news articles is given in the description box and also in the comment section. Let's start with first news article analysis. Now let's take up this news article which talks about China's recent decision to join the UN Arms Trade Treaty. The news also tells that this move by China comes after the US announcement that is in the last year, United States of America announced its plans to pull out of the agreement. The Chinese government also said that its move to join the treaty is to enhance peace and stability in the world and also to support multilateralism. The syllabus relevant to the analysis of this news article is highlighted here for your reference. So to understand the significance of Chinese decision to join the treaty, we should also understand the present situation. That is, we have been seeing a lot of aggression by China in many dimensions, right from disputes in South China Sea, then border disputes with India, then trade wars with the United States of America, then its extensive projects in Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean regions in order to dominate in the global geopolitical space. So in this context, let us try to understand what is UN Arms Trade Treaty and its relevance in the present context, and we will also see why India abstained from joining this treaty. Know that the United Nations Arms Trade Treaty, that is the ATT, regulates the international trade in conventional arms, that is from small arms to battle tanks, combating aircrafts, warships, and so forth and so on. Note that the treaty entered into force on 24th December in the year 2014. Until now, about 130 countries have signed the treaty and about 97 members ratified the treaty. And it is the first legally binding treaty in order to regulate the international trade in the conventional arms. Now we'll see the objectives of the treaty. The objectives include establishing the highest possible common international standards in order to regulate the international trade in the conventional arms. So the prevention and eradication of illicit trade in conventional arms and to prevent their diversion is another important objective of the treaty. So we can say that the treaty aims to contribute to international and regional peace, security and stability. It also aims to reduce human suffering. The treaty also aims to promote cooperation, transparency and responsible action by state parties in the international trade in conventional arms. And the treaty also aims to build confidence among the state parties. Here one important point to be noted is that this treaty will not apply to the international movement of conventional arms by a state party for its own use, provided that the weapons remain under the state party's ownership. The treaty also does not regulate the domestic sale or use of weapons in any country. So we can say that the treaty also recognizes the legitimacy of the arms trade to enable states to provide for their own security. So with this information, now we'll see why India abstained from joining this treaty. We know that India is one of the largest arms importers in the world, but still India abstained from joining the treaty because the treaty has not fully addressed India's legitimate concerns on illegal arms transfers to terrorist and non-governmental groups. And India maintained that the exporting countries should not supply arms without strict end user verification in order to avoid proliferation to non-state and terrorist groups. And this concern was also not addressed in the treaty. India also demanded that the monitoring and verification of arms proliferation should be handled by an international agency. So these are the certain concerns raised by India, and India always favored disarmament and regulations over international trade of conventional weapons. But UN Arms Trade Treaty is not inclusive or balanced in nature. So in the context of this news article, try to remember that United Nations Arms Trade Treaty regulates the international trade in conventional arms and India has not joined this treaty. Let's move on to the next news article analysis. Now let's take up this comment column from editorial page. In the last week, we talked about how threats from China and Pakistan are different and how Indian claims are valid. So, to understand further, today we have an important news article written by a former UN diplomat. And in this news article, he explains the historical perspective of India-Nepal border issue and how international law supports India's claim. So, to understand better, we are going to see a lot of geographically important places near India-Nepal-China border. And the syllabus relevance of this news article is highlighted here for your reference. Now, to understand Indo-Nepal border misunderstanding, the author blames the Treaty of Sugali. In this context, the author mentions the negotiators of the treaty had no idea of the geography of this place, and the treaty was based on mere perceptions of pilgrims to Manas Sarovar. And on those days, pilgrims consider the springs at Kalapani and at the base of Lipu Lake Pass as the source of the Kali River. Therefore, the border areas were divided by the British and the Nepali kingdom, taking Kali River as a dividing boundary between Nepal and British India. Know that the region east and west to Kali River is called as Bayans region. And as per this treaty, it divided eastern Bayans to Nepal, western Bayans to British India. And the entire drainage of the Kalapani and Lipu Lake was part of then British India. However, in the later days, Nepalese started claiming even more area to the western side, which is called Kuti Valley. But this was not accepted by then British government, and it retained the Kuti Valley and Limpiadura as a sovereign territory of British India. Know that in the later days, Nepal again started claiming Limpiadura as part of Nepal based on the fact that Limpiadura is the source of Kali River and hence it should be the border between India and Nepal. In addition, the Nepali government started claiming Lipu Lake and Kalapani as sovereign territory of Nepal. So we can say that the misunderstanding of geography of this region could be one of the reasons for the present day India-Nepal dispute. If you look at the news article, the author also mentions the principles of international law, which supports the British and India's claim in the context of the present ongoing dispute between India and Nepal. He notes that borders are established through political agreements and delimitation gives specific meaning to the verbal description and is considered part of the negotiations, and the demarcation is the setting up of boundary markers. So in the case of Lipu Lake and Kalapani and now Limpiadura, the political agreement in 1817 has been acted upon by both the parties and hence not open to challenging in the present times. So it is important to note that the Treaty of Sugali has to be interpreted with reference to the circumstances prevailing at that time when the treaty was concluded. Then the author also notes that India should come with a white paper on Aksai chain similar to that of white paper for Bayans region in 1997. He further observes that border resolution is a part of political negotiation and overlapping patrolling points are inadequate substitutes for boundary pillars. It means that the patrolling points overlap between India and China in Ladakh cannot be deemed as boundary pillars. As a final point, the author points that civilizational states should rely on the power of persuasion to settle misapprehensions left over by the colonialism. With this information, we have come to the end of analysis of this editorial. Let's move on to the next news article analysis. Now let us discuss an article about the Puri Ratha Yatra. The article says the Supreme Court of India had lifted the ban on the conduct of Puri Jagannath Ratha Yatra. The court also said that there should be a strict curfew or complete lack of public during the entire duration of the festival. The court also noted that Jagannath Puri Temple Administration and the state government, in consultation with the central government, were entirely responsible for the safe conduct of the festival. So in this context, we should focus where this Jagannath temple is located, who has built this temple, and the type of temple architecture and its famous Ratha Yatra. The syllabus relevant for the analysis of this news article is highlighted here for your reference. We know that there are 4 dhamas or the holiest of holy places with reference to Hindu religion, and these 4 places are Rameshwaram in the state of Tamil Nadu, Puri in the state of Odisha, Dwaraka in the state of Gujarat, and Badrinath in the state of Uttarakhand. Know that the Jagannath temple at Puri in the state of Odisha is one of the most famous Vaishnava sites of worship, and it is one of the oldest Hindu temples still in use for the daily rituals.
So in this context, we should know that who has built this temple. Know that the shrine was built by Anantavarman of the Chaudaganga dynasty in the 10th century AD. The Chaudaganga dynasty is also known as the Eastern Ganga dynasty, and this dynasty is known for ruling the present state of Odisha and its neighboring territory during the 10th century AD. The main temple of Jagannatha is an impressive and amazing structure with a height of 65 meters placed on an elevated platform. It is constructed in Kalinga architecture, and the important deities worshipped at the temple are Lord Jagannatha, Devi Subhadra and Lord Balabhadra, and the deities are seated on the pedestal which is known as Ratna Simhasana. We know that there are so many festivals of Sri Jagannatha temple which were observed during the entire year. These includes Snana Yatra, Netrosava, Radha Yatra, Sri Krishna Janma, etc. And the most important festival is the world famous Radha Yatra, which is also known as core festival of Lord Jagannatha. Know that Radha Yatra is the festival of chariots of Lord Jagannatha, celebrated every year at Puri in the state of Odisha. So during the festival, the main deities and the celestial wheel, Sudarshana, are taken out from the temple in an elaborate ritual procession, and they will be taken in their respective chariots drawn by thousands of devotees to another temple, and after a stay for 7 days the deities would return to their abode. The festival marks the participation of people from all walks of life, irrespective of caste, creed and religion, which is the significance of world famous Radha Yatra. So in the context of this news article, we should focus where this Jagannatha temple is located, who has built this temple, and its famous Radha Yatra. With this information, let's move on to the next news article analysis. Now have a look at this question. This question is framed based on the news article which talks about the Kisan credit cards. The news is that fishermen are demanding the banks to speed up the process of issuing Kisan credit cards. And they have complained that even after several months of filing applications for issual of Kisan credit cards, the banks did not process them. So in this context, we'll have a brief discussion about Kisan credit cards, its objective, eligibility criteria, and then advantages of the Kisan credit cards. Know that the Kisan credit card scheme, that is a KCC scheme, was introduced in the year 1998 to facilitate and make accessible credit available to the farmers. The scheme was to issue Kisan credit cards to farmers on the basis of the land holdings, so that the farmer can avail credit for purchase of agriculture input such as seeds, fertilizers, pesticides and other production needs. So we can say that the objectives of the scheme is to meet the credit requirements for the cultivation of crops, post-harvest expenses, marketing loans, working capital, investment credit requirement for agriculture and allied activities like purchase of pump sets, dairy animals, sprayers, etc. Know that the credit can also be used for the consumption requirements of farmer households. Now when it comes to eligibility criteria, that the eligible farmers include individuals or joint borrowers who are owner cultivators, tenant farmers, sharecroppers and also self-help groups or joint liability groups of farmers. Know that recently the Government of India announced eligibility of farmers involved in animal husbandry and fisheries. So we can say that at present the beneficiary list also includes farmers involved in animal husbandry and fisheries. Now we'll see the advantages of Kisan credit card scheme. We know that the scheme aims at providing farmers with an adequate and timely credit based on the land holdings. And the scheme works under a single window with a simplified procedure and flexible repayment options. And the scheme is under implementation in the entire nation with the help of commercial banks, regional rural banks and also with the help of cooperative banks. Know that the scheme also supports collateral free credit from the banking system. Government of India also provides interest subvention of 2% and a prompt repayment incentive of 3% to the farmers. So we can say that the credit is available at a very subsidized rate of 4% per annum under the Kisan credit card scheme. Also know that the maximum amount, interest rate, time duration for repayment, then interest subvention, etc. varies as per the land holdings. So from this discussion, we can say that for all the agricultural related loans, Kisan credit card scheme is one of the best options to avail credit. The loan can be taken from any of the branch as per the convenience of the farmers. The scheme also provides the facility of ATM enabled RuPay card to the farmers, and they can have any number of withdrawals using these cards within the permitted limit. So this scheme helps in financial inclusion, and it also helps in alleviating and empowering the distressed farmers and boost productivity of the farming sector. With this information, let's take up the given question with reference to Kisan Credit Card Scheme. Here three statements are given and you need to choose a correct statement or statements. The scheme aims at providing farmers with an adequate and timely credit and support of up to 1.6 lakh rupees without collateral from the banking system. Farmers involved in animal husbandry and fisheries are not included in the beneficiary list of Kisan Credit Card Scheme. The scheme is implemented by the Ministry of Finance. The first statement is correct because the scheme was introduced in 1998 to provide an adequate and timely credit to the farmers based on the land holdings. Know that the scheme also supports collateral free credit up to 1.6 lakh rupees. And the maximum amount, interest rates, time duration, and also interest subvention varies as per the land holdings. And this scheme is implemented by the Ministry of Agriculture. Know that recently the beneficiary list is expanded by including the farmers involved in animal husbandry and fisheries. So out of the given statements, first statement is correct and the remaining statements are incorrect. So the correct answer for this question is option A, 1 only. Now let's take up this question which is based on Senkaku Islands. We have framed this question because we have a relevant news article in today's newspaper about the renaming of a disputed island by Japan. In this context, we should know where these islands are located and what is the present bone of contention. We know that Japan is a group of islands, and important islands include Hokkaido, Honshu, Shikoku and Kyushu. When it comes to Senkaku Islands, these islands are also a group of uninhabited islands located in the East China Sea. Know that these islands are geographically located east of mainland China, northeast of Taiwan and west of Ishigaki city of Japan. These islands once again came into limelight because of a mutual claim by Japan, Taiwan and China. So in this context, let us discuss the brief history of these disputed islands which are located in the East China Sea. And these disputed islands are known as Senkaku in Japan, Diaoyus in Taiwan and China. According to some sources, these Senkaku Islands were under Chinese rule since the ancient times, but in late 19th century, Japan laid claim to these uninhabited islands. But in the later days, that is in the 1970s, China renewed its interest in these islands when oil and natural gas were discovered. So what is the significance of these islands? Some believes that the Chinese perceive the islands as a symbol of Chinese historical defeat to Japan in the Sino-Japanese War. So we can say that though the islands are small, its ownership is associated with the national pride of both Japanese and Chinese people. But the more pragmatic reason could be the presence of a significant oil and natural resource in this region. So with this information, let's take up the given question. The Senkaku Islands recently seen in news is a disputed territory between option A, Indonesia and Malaysia, option B, China and Japan, option C, Japan and South Korea, option D, China and Russia. The correct answer is option B, China and Japan. Let's start our practice question session. Here two statements are given and you need to choose the correct statement or statements. The main shrine of the famous Jagannatha temple at Puri was constructed by Ashoka, the Great of the Maurya dynasty. The Ratha Yatra or Festival of Chariots is an important festival associated with the Jagannatha temple. Your first statement is incorrect because the main shrine was built by Anantavarman of the Chaudaganga dynasty during the 10th century. We know that Ashoka, the Great of the Mauryan dynasty, lived during the 3rd century BC. In this context, know that there are 4 holiest of holy places in our country with reference to Hindu religion. And these places are Rameshwaram in the state of Tamil Nadu, Puri in the state of Odisha, Dwaraka in the state of Gujarat, and Badrinath in the state of Uttarakhand. Know that the Jagannatha temple at Puri is one of the most famous Vaishnava sites of worship, and the main temple of Jagannatha is an impressive and amazing structure with a height of 65 meters and it is constructed in Kalinga architecture. The important deities worshipped at the temple are Lord Jagannatha, Lord Balabhadra, and Devi Subhadra. Know that Radha or the festival of chariots of Lord Jagannatha, is celebrated every year. So during the festival, the main deities and the celestial wheel Sudarshana are taken out from the temple premises in an elaborate ritual procession. So the correct answer for this question is option B, 2 only. Now let's take up this question with reference to UN Arms Trade Treaty. Two statements are given. You need to choose correct statement or statements. It aims to regulate the international trade in conventional arms and nuclear weapons. India did not join this treaty yet. The first statement is incorrect because this treaty regulates the international trade in the conventional arms only, but not the nuclear weapons. Know that the conventional arms include weapons from small arms, battle tanks, combating aircrafts, warships, etc. The treaty came into enforcement on 24th December 2014, and it is the first legally binding treaty to regulate the international trade in the conventional arms. About 130 countries have signed the treaty and about 97 members ratified the treaty. And know that India did not join this treaty yet. So the correct answer for this question is option B, 2 only. Let's take up one more practice prelims question. Which are the following mountain peaks located in Nepal? The given mountain peaks are Jindagada, Mount Everest, Kang-Atse, Makalu. So in the context of this question, try to know the important mountain peaks of Nepal. And these peaks are Dhaulagiri, Annapurna, Mount Everest, Mount Lhotse, Mount Makalu, and Mount Kanchenjunga. We know that Mount Everest is the world's highest mountain peak located on the border between China and Nepal. Then the next highest mountain peak is K2, followed by Kanchenjunga, Lhotse, and then Makalu. Know that Jindagada is a mountain peak in the Eastern Ghats located in the state of Andhra Pradesh, whereas Kang-Atse is located in the Union Territory of Ladakh, and it is also part of Hemis National Park. So out of the given mountain peaks, only Everest and Makalu are located in Nepal. So the correct answer is option C, 2 and 4 only. With this, we have come to the end of analysis of today's news analysis. If you like the video, please do like, share, comment and subscribe Shankar IAS Academy YouTube channel for more updates. Thank you.